less than 5 seconds. What is shaking, y'all? Episode 199 of the Golden Mic. Andres, do you want to know why I've had 199 episodes?
Tell me.
Because I produce my own show, sucker. No one can cancel me. You can't cancel me. It is the last of the Golden Mic 100s. Tomorrow we start Golden Mic 200, and I can't think of a better person to end the last 99 of this series than Andres Valencia. I'm not going to do the common intro. I met Andres when we volunteered as coaches for a coaching company to help with the training. And right at the moment where we were turning lights on and off for the leaders, I felt we were on the same page. My friend, we've been through some ups, downs, and all arounds, but we're still here. And I still love the fact that we appreciate each other and we're doing this together, man. Andres Valencia, it is an honor to have you on the show. It is an honor to have you talking about mature masculinity, as well as the fact that now you're fully certified. You're fully certified as a coach. You're doing purpose and meaning work. How's it been for you?
Life is good. So first of all, man, thanks for having me. I am stoked to be here. It's an honor to be here and share this with you. So when you and I met, I was still working at a company where I was already coaching. I was supporting leaders into becoming stronger leaders. And that's something that was important for me at that time to do and to continue that. And as of early November, I have stepped full on into my life as an entrepreneur and as a full-time coach, which that has been a joy, man. It's been a fun ride. It is busy and hectic, but I'm loving every minute of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a little giveaway on what I'm thinking about saying on tomorrow's Golden Mic, and it's this: when your life, when work and play start to mix, you know you're onto something good. And Andres, it's been awesome to see you on that road, and it's been awesome to have your support on that road, man. I fucking love it, man. So here's the deal, y'all. For those of you who haven't met me after 199 episodes, my name is Marc Cordon't. I'm the founder of the Joy Revolution, and more importantly, I ask people like Drace on a regular basis 2 questions. Super simple job I have. The questions are this, and Drace, I want you to answer them if you will. How happy are you today? And how much are you living in your purpose?
Ooh, good questions. Right now, in this moment, I'm very happy. It is, but here's the thing with happiness, and I use this analogy with a lot of the things that I work on with my clients and for myself. Mm-hmm. It is not a light switch. It is not something that you just flip on and boom, now I'm happy and I stay happy all the time. It is I don't know if a roller coaster, but it has its ups and downs. It has its moments that it is awesome. You're in this peak moment and everything is flowing. And when I'm facilitating workshops and I'm creating magic in a room, I feel at that height, right? Mm-hmm. And then there are moments that you wake up and it's not there and it's not the same, or I feel lost from that, what is meaningful to me. And then I got to work through it. And I got to either deal with the funk that I'm in and lean into it and appreciate the funk. And from there, after going through that funk, right? So now we're in the bottom part of this, you see that it starts getting back up again. Yeah. This journey of entrepreneurship has been a lot of that, right? I love what you said, combining work and play. Mm-hmm. That's what this feels like to me right now. Yeah. And it's fun. And there are funks.
Without the bitter, you don't understand the sweet as much, you know? The thing that I love you calling out about that is, I acknowledge we're on social media right now, so we're inundated with messages that says choose happiness and do this with happiness. And sometimes when your patterns have not been disrupted, it's hard to choose happiness. You know, so I love the way that you answer that. For those of you watching, and I see y'all, I see you, Dave Thompson. I see you, Jamie Broderick. Appreciate the funk, says Dave Thompson. Love it. For those of you watching, and feel like you're playing when you're working, and you're working when you're playing, it's all mixed in one thing. That's what I'm going to say in the 200th episode. I want you to hit that heart. Let's do some engagement right now. Hit the heart. Let us know that you are alive and that your heart is beating, baby. Now, here's the other thing. A lot of people a lot of people think positive psychology is about 24/7 shits and giggles. Andres Valencia coming around, dropping Skittles on everybody. We're happy 24/7. For the last time in the 100 episodes. Nah, that's not what positive psychology is about. It's about knowing that you're going through the ups, downs, all arounds, and you're like watching it like it's a movie. You can pull yourself out and observe your own life, which gives you the ability to build your joy capacity. And building your joy capacity is not only going to benefit you, it benefits the communities that you serve while you're playing. It makes things easier with grace and joy, baby. So I love what you said about that, Andres. So for those of you watching tonight and you're like, Cordon't, Valencia, it's 6:00 in the evening, Eastern Standard Time. Like, I am so sick and tired of this happiness bull crap. That's cool. Or you're saying, Valencia, Cordon't, I worked in a job for 30 years. You want to talk about purpose? I'm out of it. I'm out of purpose. I'm out of alignment, whatever you want to call it. That's cool. That's part of your hero's journey or your heroine's journey. Hopefully you'll come on the show in the 200s and talk to us about that journey. All right. So if you're in a place and you haven't seen the show because it's usually at 12 o'clock, give us a thumbs up. Let us know that your heart is beating because you're just like, we're all the same here. Right. Also, if you think that 24/7 happiness is a real thing, I've got something to say to you. It's not. If you're 24/7 happy, there's a pathological problem or you're dead. Welcome to the Golden Mic, everyone. Prime time. Here's the last thing. Hope. A lot of people are coming into 2020 saying, I hope things change. I hope we get these movements started. I hope my business starts taking up. I hope that you can deliver me, oh great God, a new Lamborghini so that I can go and drive the kids around. But it's your fault, God, that I'm not getting this Lamborghini. That's not hope. That's wishing and sitting. Hope is when you can envision a fantastic future for yourself and then start taking your own marching orders towards that fantastic future. And when people experience that form of hope, EQ and IQ are the only two things that they found are similar in impact in your life. And IQ is kind of a distortion. So EQ is probably the closest thing to hope. If you're feeling hopeful, there's one more button that I want you to hit right now. And it's this button. It's the wow face. And Valencia, guess what? You are going to demonstrate with me what a wow face looks like at the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Oh my God. I literally was sprayed with your wow face, bro. Amazing. Right. Given that, Drace, what is your story, man? We're talking about mature masculinity today. Mm-hmm. What brought you to this here moment?
So, all right, you ready for me to get vulnerable? Mm-hmm. I'm gonna share some things that maybe for the viewers at home, maybe a little bit shocking. And so I want to share like a very real story about how I came to this point. So mature masculinity is something that it's a word, right? Masculinity in itself, there's nothing wrong with masculinity in itself. But I also believe that in today's day and age, a lot of men are confused as to what it means to be a man. And I have experienced firsthand what it means when a man is not mature in his masculinity, right? He's not emotionally mature. So I was born in a very loving family, very loving household. I've got a mom and a dad, siblings, and my dad is not my biological dad. He earned the title dad, though. My earliest childhood memories are with my dad. My biological father, on the other hand, considered me a problem and not his problem. And so I was 2 years old when he tried to drown me in the bathtub. And I have memories of this, right? So childhood trauma, it's a real thing. What that does when somehow as a kid, you know that you're not wanted by the person who's supposed to protect you. For me, it was, if I look back, on the one hand, it was, here's an analogy. It was living my life as if I was driving a car with one foot on the gas and one other foot on the brake, right? It's like this tug and go continuously. I am loved. I am wanted. I can be here. No, I can't. I'm not worthy of being here. I'm not worthy of love because the person who was supposed to love me didn't, right? As a matter of fact, he tried to kill me. So it took me 3 decades to realize that I had this message in me when I realized that I was dating the same women over and over again and always ended up in the same way and not in a good way. And I realized I was 29 and I realized the common denominator of all of this is me. Mm-hmm. So I got to change something. And that's when I started digging and getting help, because I realized I can do this by myself, but that's going to be miserable, or I can get help. And I decided to get help. Mm-hmm. And at age 29, I did the work that I was able to do, and I hit a plateau. I knew there was more underneath, but this was the level that I could go. Mm. And so I'm originally from the Netherlands. My parents are from Chile. I moved to the United States. And when you move like this, it's a whole different situation. Everything that you're familiar with just is no longer there. And that's what broke that plateau. And so I had to go deeper and deeper into healing the stuff that had such a tight hold of me, this belief that I wasn't worthy. Emotionally, I was not a mature man at that time. Mm-hmm. I was unable to express my emotions, to express my frustrations, to articulate them, to talk about it. Right? It did not make me a good husband by any means. Right? I needed to mature myself in order to be able to do what I do now, which is work with people and help them get what they want, but also heal from those past traumas, the stuff that gets in the way.
Dres,
right?
I'm interested how do you get to the self-awareness of knowing that I need help, or B, being like, or was it like something like you were walking around and you knew you had a deep-seated issue, right? Because as I was growing up, I knew that I had I was like, I can't put a finger on what's going on right now, and it wasn't until I was in therapy, in my late 20s, and it was, I'm balancing the persona of being fully American individual and fully Filipino collective, and how do I be this individual without having to apologize to the collective, right? And so I couldn't come to that on my own. It was very much like it just felt weird in my body. And I went to the therapist feeling broken. There was no way I would go to a coach, but I went to a therapist and I was like, what is it? Put me on medicine, fix me, whatever. I don't know what it is, but just fix me. How was that for you?
So I had the benefit of having an older sister who had the same or a very similar experience with my biological father. Not the bathtub incident, but the idea of not being wanted, and knowing that this man had a lot of loose screws in his head. Let me put it that way, right?
So there was a pattern.
Well, she preceded me in this awareness, and she was seeing a therapist, and so that's like, so for me there was okay, if this is working for you, then that might be a right path for me. So that helped. The other part that you're mentioning is this idea of multiple cultures, right? I was born in the Netherlands. My parents are from Chile. The collectivist and the individualist society. The United States scores a little bit high or a lot higher in terms of the individual society than the Netherlands. But compared to Chile, that's collectivist as well. And so I can relate to that.
Yeah.
The third thing I wanna, and this is a pet peeve of mine, is this idea of we're broken. I honestly do not believe that either one of us is broken. I have been through, you swear a lot on this show, I've been through shit in my life, right? And my relationship with anger for a lot of years has been that of suppressing it, of keeping it down.
Yeah.
And when you suppress some of that, when you suppress one part, what you would call the bad part, you also suppress the good part.
Yep.
Right? Yep. So that had everything to do with my relationship with my biological father. That suppressing of anger, and eventually that comes out, but it doesn't come out as anger. It comes out as like something higher on that scale, rage, fury. It ain't pretty. Right? I needed to heal that.
Yeah.
I wasn't broken. And I honestly believe the people that I work with and the people that are walking around on this world, we're not broken. We might be hurt and we might benefit from healing, but we're not broken. And here's the distinction that I make between that. I wrote a post about this on Facebook a while back, which is similar to the word that you said. You go to a therapist and you say, fix me.
Yeah.
With the belief that it is an external thing that's going to fix you.
Yep.
Whereas healing is an inside job.
Yeah.
It happens on the inside. And we can benefit from support in that. Absolutely. Yeah. But the belief of like, okay, I am broken and therefore I need an external thing, person, tool to heal, not to heal, to be fixed. That's something that I don't believe in.
So not even the idea that we may have things that are fractured or splintered.
Well, so
because I do believe in the idea of reconciliation or reintegration of maybe two personas to create, because my personas that I thought I needed to live up to were just social constructs of what I thought American and Filipino were. And then through a lot of work, this is just me going into I at 6 o'clock at night. So I'm going to go into I for a second.
Sure.
I believed that there was something transcendent of being either or. It was both and being Filipino American understates like how much more I feel comfortable in my skin nowadays. I'm not saying that it's all working, it's not all shits and giggles for me, but also at the same time, it's so much more comfortable now. Whereas before it felt like totally white knuckling it. And I was at the mercy of my situation. I would show up and if there were other Filipinos, I start acting Filipino. White people act white, and so I didn't feel as much at the mercy of it anymore. But like, I totally get you on that idea of broken, but I feel like you're really onto something with your use of language, Drace, because I think that makes a lot of sense. And I can, seeing that as not something where we're so broken that we can't fix it. But I was definitely there when I was in my 20s. But also at the same time, when you use the word mature masculinity, I know you prefaced it, but it does feel as if masculinity, with the prefacing term, when you take away masculinity, it's inferred masculinity is immature. So there's an intention that you're putting mature there. So talk to me a little bit more about the intention of it. Because this could be a discussion about conscious masculinity. It could be a discussion about non-toxic masculinity. But you're talking about mature masculinity. Give me an idea of what that is.
So thanks for asking that question, because I think it's an important conversation. I do believe masculinity, it's not good or bad. It just is, right? We hear a lot about toxic masculinity. I don't think that masculinity in and of itself is toxic. Not at all, right? But masculinity becomes toxic as, I think the word is a gender construct that we attribute what a man looks like. And we let the little kid on the soccer or football field who is crying because he was hit, and he gets told by the coach, stop being a pussy, you got to man up when he's crying, right? What that leads into is this belief that kids cannot express their emotions, that boys cannot express their emotions. And that turns into young adults who are suppressing those feelings and those emotions, and they don't share it. And that can lead to violence. That can lead to all sorts of undesirable effects, all because the gender construct of this is what a man looks like and does. And let me tell you what it doesn't. You don't share emotions. You don't cry. You are not, whatever those things are. That's what the toxic part about that masculinity.
It makes total sense. And the question that I have for you is, I can only give one perspective, and that's my own. But from my perspective, it seems like toxic masculinity has become the dominant form of masculinity for several years. I mean, what is your take on that?
I have a lot of conversations with men about this, right? And kind of breaks my heart when there is male, I'm going to say kid, end of his 20s, not that I'm that old, but white male kid, end of his 20s, and hold it. and he says, you know what, I feel like I cannot be, because I feel like I can't be myself. Not sure what that looks like because I'm afraid of stepping over a boundary. Well, that sucks.
Yeah.
Right? That cannot be the purpose of all this. In my life with the people that I'm surrounded with, I don't see that toxic masculinity is the default by any means.
Okay.
I feel that I have very valuable conversations with men, with women about this. Part of that is because I seek it out, right? Yeah. I get on these shows and have a conversation. And so what I get is very valuable feedback from people, and I welcome that.
Right.
Can I go into some things that I have seen happen, and I'm curious just to put this out there into the world and see what reactions I get as to how we got to this.
So you're turning my show into a petri dish right now, Valencia. Do it. Let's do it.
How do you feel about that? Yeah? Cool. So there are three things that I want to bring up that I've been seeing and reading up on. And I want to start like way back when, a couple of generations, 4 generations back, right? We had, so what makes that great-grandfather who used to provide for the family, most likely do some sort of blue-collar work, but feel pride in that what he delivered, feel pride in being able to provide. And it was a very clear distinction between him providing, his wife doing some things in the house. That sounds horrible how I just put that, so I might get some comments on that. But that distinction was very clear, right? Then this man has a son. This son also does provides. He works with his hands, but he gets a son, and the message to the son is, so now we're talking the 3rd generation, is I don't want you to do what I'm doing with my hands. I want you to get a job where you get to wear a white collar.
Right.
Right. And so in those 3 generations, the example of what it means to be a man somewhere got lost because this third person no longer could look up to dad because that pride, that sense of pride in providing and doing work with his hands was no longer there. And the idea was you got to do something where you get to wear a white collar, right? Yeah. Then we have the fourth generation, which is a whole different thing where we're growing up with screens, and it's a whole different example of what it means to be a man.
Yeah. Well, so I want to go there in a second. Oh, I want to allow you to finish the thought.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So that's one part that I see, right? Yeah. The other thing, and this is true for many cultures, but not in most Western cultures, is that there is a rite of passage to go from being a boy to being a man. Yep. And there they would be invited at whatever age in South America at age 7, in some tribes, right? Age 13, 14, whatever that age is. And these youngsters, these young boys got invited to get into the tent of men, where the elder man sat closest to the fire. And they talked about their frustrations, about their struggles. And these young men, or still boys in our views probably, got an example of how you deal with all this stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
And I love that. I love that you bring that up, and I'm still not cutting you off. But like, I also love how Carl Jung documented that in a bunch of other cultures, how there is a rite of passage, and oftentimes, if you don't take that rite of passage, as a man or woman, you're stuck since we're talking in the context of man, you're stuck as you grow older in a man-child. You're called a man-child because you have a man's body, but you have the brain of a child. And so I think that's what you're talking about with point 2, is that these rites of passage were psychological rites of passage to help folks with their transition into,
Yep.
Okay, cool. And point number 3.
So yes, I'm talking about that. And I'm talking about the example of, okay, how do we deal with these frustrations? How do we deal with these struggles? How do we deal with conflict? These young kids got to see that in this circle, along this fire circle of men who obviously had their frustrations, had their discord, their conflict, and they got resolved. Right? That's something that we're missing, I believe, today. All right. So the third part I'm going to share is that with the rise of women in the workforce and strong women that I absolutely love, right? I think that's a really good thing. What that did is that men no longer needed to provide. The other thing that it did is that with women coming into the workforce in the way that they are present today, again, I think that's a really good thing. Men have also lost what great grandfather had, was this environment where he could be with other men and have that sort of sharing. And so I'm going to take all of that into today, where I see that a lot of men are lonely. Mm-hmm. They don't have the idea of, it's okay for me to have camaraderie, have connection with other men. It's not okay for me to share my struggles, my emotions, my conflict. And that's the problem that leads into masculinity becoming toxic. Okay. The way that I see it.
Okay. So, man, these are heavy duty psychological and sociological things, right? So, for example, I'll just raise my hand and just use I statements the whole time. Cool. The first point that you talk about, like, I definitely see it coming out as a father with my own son, and especially when I'm in therapy talking about it, because there's certain things that I don't want my son to go through that I went through. And so in many ways, like, I definitely see what you're talking about. And I also see the certain decisions that my own parents have made that they didn't want to see me to go through. And so that in and of itself is like this intergenerational stress that I'm sure, like, as a coach, I can't speak on it, but definitely I've heard therapists speak to it very, very clearly. Then the next piece you're talking about is that idea of transitioning and what rites of passage are we actually having nowadays, and how are we constructing these rites of passage to deal with what sort of what the modern man looks like. It's almost like we might have some antiquated things going on here. I want to take it. I want to take it a step back before we springboard forward. How do you define what it means to be a man nowadays, and especially given the fact that, like, bro, I come from a school where it was broken down into like gender expression, gender roles, biological, and like there's different ways to talk about gender and gender fluidity. So what does it actually mean to be a man?
Yeah. So here's the definition that I currently have. I totally reserve the right to change my mind.
Okay. No, you must stick with it, and we will forever have you on replay.
And forever haunt me with it. This is what you said. But yes. Okay, cool. So let me just put a stake in the ground. And right now, so my definition of what it means to be a man is that you are so comfortable with your own gifts, skills, talents, that you create an environment where you invite others to bring their best self.
Okay. And when I hear that, I'm like, why isn't that the definition of being a human?
Okay. That's a good question. And it's conversations like this that make me say I'm going to reserve the right to change my mind.
It's all right? Good. I mean, yeah.
And that's a fair point. I was in a group where I asked someone who had very strong religious views what his definition was of a man. And basically he said, well, a man has to provide, a man has to protect, and a man has to precede. And I'm like, okay, so how does that, how different from that of a woman? Because I think the love of a mom that she felt for his child, there's a lot of protection that goes into it. I don't think there's anything as fierce as the love of a mom protecting her child.
Sure. And so, I mean, to go through the 3 Ps, like, what is actually the definition of provide? Because I can tell you where my dad provided and where my mom provided and where my sister provided and where my, the person who sat me every Friday night and watched wrestling provided. I mean, what does that actually, like, to construct it even more? Is there a specific idea of providing? And yeah, I'm edging it. I mean, I'm not asking coaching questions right now. Like I'm edging it for the show. Like, I feel like this is the provide, making the assumption, and I don't care, is about this idea of financial stability or stability for the primary, bringing in the primary goods. Is that what you feel is meant by provide? Or
so that's kind of the sentiment that I got from this answer. But then I combine that with, I was brought up, like, my mom is a strong woman.
Yeah.
I love strong women. There's a lot of women in the workforce right now that provide. Some of them make more than their husbands. There's nothing wrong with that. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't subscribe to that definition.
Okay. So let's work on it. So let's work on that current definition that you have, and sort of go into it from the standpoint of maybe this is something that's your definition is relevant to all humans, and let's focus it into to men primarily. And I'm like, gender expressing males, it doesn't matter, but just people who identify as men. And why is your definition so important?
That's thanks for that question. That puts me to think. So here is both my own experience, but also I'm going to bring it back to my biological father. I was 2 years old when he tried to drown me in the bathtub. Right? Mm-hmm. I have a memory of that.
Yeah.
My sense, and I don't know this because I was 2 years old, is that he was high in his emotion. I don't think that he actually tried to kill me. I don't think it's anything that I did, but it was him expressing his frustration in the only way that it came out of his body at that moment, which was through an act of violence. That is opposite of being so comfortable in your own skin.
Gotcha.
With your own gifts, skills, and talents, right? And I have had that.
Yeah.
I have been unable to express my my emotions in a way, and it's this idea of feeling challenged and threatened, and
sure.
it shouldn't be that way.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that's where that comes from.
Are you at all activated by the things that are, the Me Too movements and stuff like that? Is there a part of you that's wanting to, be a champion for that, and that's why mature masculinity is becoming such a big issue, in addition to your own fucking life story, man?
Yeah. So, I'm going to take the word toxic masculinity, and I see how we like little boys suffer from the effects of that masculinity, that gender gender construct of, well, this is what it looks like to be a man, and we project that onto these boys, and we're doing them a massive disservice. That may or may not be, I really don't know, be at the root of some of the violence, the men forcing them up onto women. To answer your question, do I get activated by the Me Too movement? No, I don't. I think it's a very important movement. Nothing against it, but it doesn't activate me to get out there. I do think we're doing our boys and our men, and with that, our girls and our women, a disservice.
Yeah.
When we project to these boys what they should be doing in order to be a man.
We're shooting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a part of that problem. I'm a part of the problem, because there's certain things where I'm like, oh man, I don't want Zach to go through this, and it's good to have a support that I can talk to. So it's like, oh, I don't need to be a perfect parent. I just need to be a present parent. Right. So, one of the things I'd like to share with you is if it's cool, my definition of what it means to be a man, what it means to be a man. And I was actually talking to, Jazz Bianchi about this day. Oh, who just posted, is that, yeah, I did some prep. I was talking to Jazz about this and this idea of there's energies too, right? I don't truly believe in a dualistic world, but to simplify it and contrast it, there's masculine and feminine energies, right? And I believe that a man is someone who is fully integrated and embraced and is practicing both masculine and feminine energy. It's balanced. And I believe a woman is someone who is completely embraced and integrated the masculine energy into their lives. Gender expression is one thing in terms of me growing up in a Filipino Catholic household, but also at the same time, there are certain things about my household that were very matriarchal. And the vetoing power stopped with the female in the household, my mother. And I'm not saying that they weren't playing illusionary roles, but I do recognize that it contributed to sort of my own issues about what masculinity means. And so that's just my definition, is sort of the embracing of both. Yes. So Jazz says, meaning he knows who he is without the constant affirmation of the feminine. Curious of your take on Jazz's definition.
Yeah. So read it to me again.
Yeah. The mature masculine and being comfortable in one's skin. Are you saying, she's asking a question first. The mature masculine and being comfortable in one's skin. Are you saying that a man's masculinity is an intrinsic state of being, meaning he knows who he is without the constant affirmation of the feminine? Curious about your take.
Okay, so this is where it gets murky, right?
You don't fuck around on this show, Dreis. We've got some sophisticated viewers, man.
No, and I appreciate that, right? So we've got what it means to be a man, right? Mm-hmm. So there's gender identity. Let me pull something up, and I'll share it with your audience as well. Okay. I have a friend who shared with me the genderbread person.
Genderbread?
Genderbread person.
Okay.
And that's what gives me a little bit of a, I'm happy to post this. I have no idea who created it. Can I put this? Does this work?
Okay, what do I see? So I see some private parts on a ginger man and a heart. What is that, a brain? Yep. Yeah, you're gonna have to walk us through that. Oh, it's like a feminine masculine symbol on the privates.
Yeah. Well, so there is this idea of gender identity, mm-hmm. which is I identify as a man, identify as a woman or genderqueer. Yep. Gender expression, which mm-hmm. is the masculine, the feminine, or mm-hmm. androgynous. There's the biological sex, which is male, female, or intersex. And then there's the sexual orientation, which here they define as homosexual, heterosexual, or bisexual. Mm-hmm. Right? So this helps me a little bit to have these conversations because I'm not up on all my definitions.
Yeah, and this is really cool, the genderbread man, because
the genderbread person.
The genderbread person, sorry. It is founded on, I forgot the name, but it is founded on queer theory, which puts all of them together. Like it's much more complicated than just biology now, which gives so much more freedom for people to express and roll, but also more confusion when it comes to maybe things like purpose and meaning in the world now. So I want you to take us through the gender person.
Well, I think I just did, right?
Okay,
and I got to reach out to this to get to answer Jazz's question.
Okay.
Which the part that I heard and that stuck with me is the external validation of the feminine. Can you read her question one more time?
Absolutely. So the mature masculine and being comfortable in one's skin. Oh, there's more people joining the show. Welcome everyone. And being comfortable in one's skin, right? Are you saying that a man's masculinity is an intrinsic state of being? Or is it one, meaning that he knows who he is without constant affirmation of the contrast, the feminine? Mm-hmm. So she wants to know, like, your take. Like, can we actually know our expression without the counterbalance of the feminine? Like,
so to me, that's an interesting question.
Okay.
Right? You brought up the idea of energies, right? Yeah. I am a man who is very good at what we call the soft skills.
Okay.
Right? In certain ways, I lead with that feminine energy.
Okay.
Right? Listening, intuition. Those would be energies that in some constructs we would label as feminine, mm-hmm. where planning, taking action would be more masculine mm-hmm. energy. I'm actually reading up on this at the moment, and so I've got more work to do on that. I do believe that this whole part of masculine and feminine in relationships is very interesting. I come from a household where my mom had made a lot of the decisions, right? So it was matriarchal, mm-hmm. I would say. In a way, she set the tone, right? Then I was married, and my wife, she comes from a household where her dad made all the decisions.
Yeah. And
we had to figure out of everything that what does it mean to be a man and a woman in a marriage based on where we were coming from.
Yeah.
And that was a whole different construct that we needed to create.
Gotcha. And, you know, also at the same time, there was also the internal identity of the masculine and the feminine. Especially in Eastern cultures, the Philippines, it's deeply rooted. So when my son was born, I got this tattoo, right? And my mom goes, "It's ugly," and cool, it's everyone's got their taste. But
so
then
much judgment.
Afterwards, she went and said, "If you get this done, you have to get this side done." And I'm like, "Why?" And she said, "Because you don't want too much masculine or feminine." I forgot which she said, but she said, when you do one thing to one part, you're affecting like the masculine. I think it might be the right side. And then she was like, then you also must honor the feminine. And so there's also that internal contrast that we have. Is that something that you believe, how do you think we can actually access that without going through the trauma, of abandonment?
Yeah. I like how these are light questions, right?
Well, I mean, last time we were doing this, we had a couple beers, man. It was a lot easier to answer, right?
True. I think it's really important work.
Yeah.
And I do not have a prescribed, here's the ABCs on how to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's work that we got to do internally. It's work about what is it that we feel comfortable with? Where are we being challenged? Right? Even within the same family, two people can have a completely different view just because they were born a couple of years apart.
Absolutely.
I think it's very much an inside job and be aware of what those beliefs are. Right? Today, in today's day and age, we say blue is the color for a baby boy, and pink is the color for a baby girl. 120 years ago, pink was a color for a boy. So it's, what are the beliefs that we're putting on it, right? Yeah. What are the things that we ourselves feel comfortable with? And this still comes very much from a headspace. But then there is this, it gets even murkier. The moment that someone like me, who leads with some of these things that we call the feminine or the softer skills, right? How does that impact the woman that I'm with in how she shows up? And if she leads with her masculine, well, how does that interact our relationship as husband and wife or as partners?
Absolutely.
Well, that's a mind fuck. So
it's a brilliant dance, isn't it?
I don't have a good answer. I just have more questions around that. And I'd love to have those conversations.
And I love that you're here talking about the questions and not needing to feel the need to provide an answer, right? Because part of me is trying to provoke you into a toxic masculinity, and you're not going there with me, man.
Sorry, dude. Yeah,
I'm a punk ass.
Here's the thing. I have done the work.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And doesn't mean that I don't get into those funks that I described earlier.
Sure.
Right? I do. But I have done the work, and I welcome these conversations. Yeah.
So I want to go into this idea. Well, actually, you know what? You've done the work, and let me go back to that for a second. Do you feel like you have a sense of mastery over this, or what is it?
I don't think it.
What do you mean by I've done the work?
So,
and I'm saying this purposefully because if we are, and I do definitely feel lonely, right? Yep. And if that is something that's endemic, or an epidemic, to the modern man, I want to know what the work looks like.
Yeah, it's dealing with our dark side. So to answer your question on mastery, do I have mastery? I wouldn't choose the word mastery, because it's something that I keep learning, man. I keep learning it. Again, it's not that light switch that, oh, now I'm here.
Yeah.
The word that I would use is I have a willingness, and sometimes I need to be reminded of that, but a willingness to go there. So last week I was in a funk. Something had happened. It threw me off my game, and I knew that I was at choice. I could resist it, which had been my MO for a lot of years. Resist it, suppress, which typically means that I am out of whack for 2 whole weeks until I allow it into my head and intellectually or cognitively I start processing it. Or I can be willing to allow that funk to come in, feel it, feel the pain, feel the hurt, be in it, and feel those feelings to completion. I love the conscious leadership group and the work that they do around feelings. And I can share a little bit more about that. But and then as I do that, there is wisdom that happens after that. Right? So I'll give you an example. So last week, some boundaries were crossed and I did not stand up for myself. And so that put me in this funk, that put me in this, in this very frustrated space. And so I was feeling anger, I was feeling hurt, I was feeling upset, and I was feeling frustrated. Mm-hmm. I could have taken action from all those places, right? And that would have looked, but now I'm going to make something up, like me slamming the door and walking away and all that. Or I can feel those feelings, allow them all to come in, and then sit with the wisdom that came from it, which was, oh, now I get it. Some boundaries were set and I need to have a conversation. Some boundaries were, how do you call this? Pushed or crossed. And I need to have a conversation, and the wisdom from that anger is that I can have that conversation, but not in a state of being angry.
Gotcha. It's your body's alert system. You're using emotions as an alert system, not as a choice or decision system. I love it, and I also do love the fact I want to recognize your wisdom that's coming out right now, because you're talking about straight up true shadow work, because you talked about for a long period of your life you suppressed that shit, right? When you're starting to face the shadow, your ego resists. It goes into pure resistance mode. And it's not until you let the shadow in, or as Carl Jung said, you embody the monster, that you can truly feel like you can then make decisions. This is why I say to people that if you only feel the happiness and you don't face the shadow of your depression or your sadness, you truly don't know what it feels to be happy. You're not making a choice for happiness. It's not, you don't know what happiness is. You're just running on a default. And so it's not true happiness. And I love the way that you're integrating that. And one of the things I also wanted to recognize is that when you were talking about that shadow work, when you don't recognize that shadow and you suppress it, the shadow runs the fucking show. That's why someone will slam the door. But when you actually not embrace the monster, but when you embody the monster and then understand, I could have made that decision, but I can also make another decision, I just wanted to recognize that. I wanted to move into this piece right now because, my God, man, have we gone into flow like we always do, brother.
Yeah.
And I want to, for the 199th episode, you kind of rocked me off my game. And so, I give it to you, man. But I also want to go into the work that you're doing about talking about mature masculinity, and also the work that you're doing when it comes to helping people find clarity, meaning, and purpose. What does the intersection of those two look like?
Good question.
Bro, this one's a softball question. You had me ask it on the show notes, man. Come on.
Oh. Here's the thing.
Or was that acting? That's a really good question.
I sent you the show notes. I didn't keep a copy.
Oh, that's even better. Again, a new process I need to streamline for the 200th episode.
Just make sure that I get the copy, or if I did, I see it. So it's and we planned this, 6 weeks ago?
It was, yeah.
Okay. So I really wasn't expecting this question today, right? I planned it apparently 6 weeks ago. So purpose, meaning, all right. Can I go woo-woo on you?
Go wherever you want, brother.
Cool.
Go wherever you want. Yeah.
So I'm going to bring a few things in, right? Here's some of my beliefs. I believe that we all are born on this earth and we've got potential, and the potential looks like right now like this, and you got to look at the screen so you see my hand, right?
I'm also looking at the monitor too down here.
Got it. I didn't realize that.
We've got a huge budget on this fucking show.
Oh, I love it. Okay, cool. So this is what potential looks like when we're being born, right? And then stuff happens in our life. And then we've got a little wrapper that limits that potential.
Nice.
Right? Mm. And then we've got another wrapper that because something happened, and then we've got another wrapper. Our work, whether that is around the mature masculine or to connect to purpose and to that what is meaningful, is to heal these wrappers. Mm-hmm. To shed those layers and shed those layer after layer so that potential can come out.
So that's what you're meaning by you're not broken. You're just in the wrappers.
You're just in the wrappers. It doesn't mean it doesn't suck. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt like hell. Hell yeah, it does. Right? And whatever that wrapper or sets of wrappers are, they are different for all of us. What can be traumatic, right? For me, it was the bathtub incident. That's traumatic, absolutely. For somebody else,
that sounds like a fucking ironclad wrapper that many people would not be able to get out of.
Well, it took me really 4 decades to get to where I am today.
Yeah.
Which is right now, I believe that everything that happened in my life, including that episode, has brought me to where I am today that allows me to support men and women in partially healing, but mostly to connect with that potential, mostly to find those things that bring them joy. So that, and here's the other part that I believe, when we live our lives from that potential, this world becomes a better place.
Okay. So let me ask you this. You like that move? What does the unwrapping process look like? How do we even take the first steps? I mean, because we went deep, bro. We went to the shadow work for a little bit, but now all of a sudden, you talked about one of the big wrappers that you needed to take off, but there's probably more wrappers when you take off more wrappers and you take off more wrappers, and it's a constant process of unraveling, right? What does that process look like for a journey person who also wants some outcome, some joy, some freedom in their life?
Yep. So let me share with you the model or the analogy that I've come up with. Okay. I think, so for me it works, and I think there's some wisdom in it. Imagine building a house, right? Let's say you've got an empty plot of land and you're going to build a house. You can start by dreaming and just creating the vision of it. Then you go a level deeper and you create a design from like how many square feet. And in that design process, you go to all the nuts and bolts and where you're going to plug in when you're vacuum cleaning. Then you start building and you start with the foundation, and then you build the house on top of that foundation. Here's the thing. As humans, we are not that free plot of land that I just described, right? We are already living in this home, in this house. So the analogy that works for me is remodeling while we are already living in the house. And for me, that first step, when it comes to creating a vision, we often create that vision from that what is comfortable right now. So it comes from a very limited space. It comes from what our ego says we're okay with, because the ego's job is to keep you safe. It's to keep you comfortable, right? So it basically, creating a vision from that point comes from impossibilities. Here's the analogy. We're going to remodel the house while we're living in it, which means first we got to go down into the basement, figure out what's all in there. And those could be the beliefs that are holding us back, the messages that we got from our parents. Those boxes that are getting in our way of living our lives, of living our potential. but they're there for a reason. They still hold energy. They're still blocking stuff, satisfaction, joy, right? When I take people through that process, my vision is that we go down into the basement, we create an inventory to start with, right? And then we go take a look at the foundation. We don't live in the basement. We just take an inventory to start with. Then we go to the foundation, and the foundation are all our gifts and talents, our skills, our qualities, our characteristics that make us unique. It's all the stuff that makes our heart sing, right? I believe that we have 3 centers of wisdom: head, heart, and gut, or body. The heart is the GPS center that guides us towards that meaning, towards that purpose. So, and that's part of that foundation that we have, right? That what makes our heart sing tells us, I should be doing more of this in my life. Sometimes it's a thing that for us come naturally with ease and grace, and other people say that's a big deal, right? And we say, well, it's just what I do. It's so easy to me. And then the belief is because it comes easy, it's not a big deal. The thing is, because it comes easy and it makes you feel alive, it is a big effing deal.
It's big. It's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the foundation. And when we are clear on, okay, what's limiting, right? But also what is all our strengths, qualities, what's that foundation? Then we can start create a vision that is rooted in possibilities. Okay, to answer your question, how do you start doing the work? It's by taking an honest look at what's in your basement. And maybe the stuff that's in your basement, maybe it's a massive box, and some of that has already served its purpose, and you can bring that down to a smaller box, right? That happens. It's an inside job. You can do it on your own. You can get the support that would make it easier, but it always is looking in your own basement.
And
that's where it starts.
I love it. It's like the Marie fucking Kondo of like human development, right? There's a certain awesomeness to how easy you present it, that it's kind of a clearing of space, right? You maybe can't start something until you let something else go. Or, if you're grasping onto something so tightly, you can't let the river take you where you need to go. Like the river is strong and benevolent, baby. That was a little woo in me, Drace. But like,
all right, cool. I like it.
So, I think we've done a lot of talking around mature masculinity, and now we're getting to this nice metaphor of everyone. We're born in this meat suit, right? And we're not born with an instruction manual. And in many ways, we're all like, I love the fact that it's called remodeling of the house, because we were born, our soul chose the meat suit. And so there is remodeling that has to be done. And I think that when you're talking about the head, heart, and the gut, sometimes the gut is saying it's time to move. There's got to be something more to life than this. The heart has shrunk, and the mind is overthinking and racing and can't come up with a decision. And I love that design of the house that you were talking about. And I know that you were doing it last week, or still this week, right, in your Facebook group, right?
Yep.
Let's give it a plug. Because I want people to go to this group. Yeah.
All right. So the group is called Live Life Deliberately, and I invite people to become a part of it. I am also designing a 5-day course that I will deliver through email that people can sign up with. So drop me your favorite emoji or connect with me. I'm happy to connect. And so last week, what I did were 2 things. One is I went live 5 days in a row in my Facebook group, and I took people at home through it. And then on Saturday, I took people in a live workshop through it. So I'll be doing more of that in 2020. So I'm trying to find a space for it. It's a January workshop, but there's more of that coming. It is the same experience, except that live, it's way cooler because you get the benefit of being belly to belly, being together in a space with other people. And it kind of normalizes the experience, because people say, I'm too scared to go in the basement.
Sure.
Or I'm in the basement and now I'm getting distracted because I've got all these boxes.
Yeah. It's overwhelming sometimes, that awareness.
Yep. And really what we're trying to do to begin with is to get an inventory of the basement. If we decide to work one-on-one or you continue to do the work by yourself, yeah, by all means, grab one of those boxes and figure that out, right? But in the experience that I'm offering, the inventory is A-okay.
Yeah. Now, with live life deliberately, is this for self-identified men, or is this for a broader community?
No, it's for men, women. If you identify androgynous, everybody is welcome. I have a background in hospitality.
I love it. You do. You literally do have a background in hospitality.
Yep. Let me finish that because it's really important, right? The work that I'm doing and the interest that I have around masculinity doesn't mean that I only work with men, right? I think that women benefit from having these conversations just as much. And you can't talk about masculinity without talking about femininity, right? You can't. So it is a dialogue that happens. For some reason, I attract more women than men, right? So there are more women who react to what I'm saying than men. And it could be because we're still conditioned not to talk about some of this stuff as men, right? When it comes to live life deliberately and the work that I do, everybody is welcome. If you're willing to show up, if you're willing to do the work, let's do this together. I am by no means a guru. I promise to get down in the basement with you. We'll do it shoulder to shoulder, lock in arms together, and let's have together this experience. And I truly, truly believe that this world becomes a better place when we do that.
Drace, we are going to wrap up the 199th episode, the last episode before this baby turns 200 tomorrow. And I want to ask you this, because you're moving towards positive psychology on me, bro. You're moving towards positive psychology. And like a lot of this work is a strengths-based approach, which is, I mean, I'm not claiming positive psychology is the only place that does that, but like, why is the strengths-based approach so important to like leading you to get more of what you want out of life versus traditional, I wouldn't say traditional approaches, but other approaches?
Yeah. So the strengths-based approach to leading that I mentioned earlier, I used to work in hospitality. One of my favorite organizations to work for was the Ritz-Carlton, who have a strengths-based approach to leading. They've been insanely successful with it. And as a early 20-year-old kid, I was working there and I experienced firsthand what it feels like when all of you is welcome and there is trust in what you have to bring. And they say, we hire you because you've got all these skills. We'll train you. But after that, it's not that you're on your own, because that was never the case. But we invite to bring all of you into this space. And then I've also worked in organizations where not all of me was welcome, and that just didn't feel right. When I was working at University of Chicago Medicine, we rolled out a program that adopted a strengths-based approach to leading and helped clinicians, nurses, techs see the impact that they have as they were caring for patients. That had a strengths-based approach, and the idea was if you bring to the forefront that what you're doing particularly well, and you help someone notice the impact that they have, then they will consciously and intentionally choose to do more of that. So I supported leaders into leading with a strengths-based approach. And what it does, I love what I just said about it invites the entire person to show up, right? Not just half of it, not just the part, but all of it is then present and welcome. And that's just a whole lot more wholesome. I know that I function better when all of me is welcome.
So it does sound as if, and I'm not trying to prove myself right or anything like that, but you can be broken. You may not be broken, but you can be fractured. And sometimes when you enter a space, you only feel like part of you is accepted, which is where the suppression comes from. I think that this has come full circle quite well, my friend. I want to urge y'all to go to Live Life Deliberately, the Facebook group. I was a part of it last week. I was sitting in cold New York, and I was watching Drace walk people through sort of the basement part of things, and I'm completely sold on what it is that you're doing, Drace. Congratulations, my friend. We are going to wrap up hand in hand, go out into the sunset, and we're going to start tomorrow with the 200th episode. Guest is myself, because
Nice.
I've got some things to say too. But Drace, this is why the show's called The Golden Mic, because I want you to do a visioning exercise with me. And before we do that, you're always welcome to come back. Always. Okay?
Cool. I'd love to. I'd be honored to.
Yeah, it would be an honor to have you back. And I want you to imagine that in sunny Chicago, that a golden mic is descending from your ceiling and is coming to rest in front of you. The golden mic translates into every language all across the world. And the multiverse, if we want to go woo, all sentient beings. There's some people who don't want to pick up what you're about to throw down. But there might be one or two or many out there that are ready to hear what it is that you have to say. Drace, brother Valencia, your golden mic is live now.
I would invite you, wherever you are on this earth, to acknowledge that you have a head, a heart, and a body, and be thankful for all of it. And as you experience that head that helps you think and reason and decision, and you tune into your heart and connect with that makes you feel alive and vibrant, and you connect with your gut, pick up on those things that just fuel you, that energize you. Pick up on those things that put an extra pep in your step, because it is by you that you're doing those things and paying attention to your magnificence, to the impact that you have as a human being on those around you, that this world really becomes a little bit of a better place. But don't do it because the world might become a better place. Do it because you feel good on the inside. Do it because it nourishes you, because it fills your cup. And that's my wish for everyone who's listening to this Golden Mic live, that they are connected and to that what brings them joy, so that when that is full and that heart overflows, they can do nothing but spread that joy for no other reason than that they feel good about themselves.
Thank you. Thank you. Drace, I want you to feel the weight of that golden mic that you just spoke into. Literally, I want you to feel it in your hands before you hand it off to me, because I'm the guest on my own show tomorrow. Do you feel the weight?
I got
now, this
it.
might be toxic, man, but in a non-toxic way, I want you to drop the golden mic ever so gently and maturely. Bam! And we have a big budget. We have a lot of golden mics. Andres Valencia, live life deliberately. Go there now. The Facebook group. There's some good things that are happening next week. We caught them right at the right time. I can't wait to have you back. Happy holidays, brother. I got one more question on behalf of Drace and myself. It's the 199th episode, so you may have heard me say this a million times. You're going to hear me say it tomorrow, but I'm going to say it every day that you see me on. If you're feeling good and you're living life to its fullest purpose, what is your responsibility? To change history for the better. Golden Mic 199 series is over. We're going to 200 tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You do not want to miss it. Thank you, Andres.
My pleasure. Thank you. Honored to be here.
Yeah. Stick around for 1 second, man. Oh, you killed it. Congratulations.